Hello everyone. This video is part of a series where we are exploring TypeScript's features with the help of a React application. Our main goal here is to learn how to type our code in order to improve confidence and velocity in development. So we will come back to the React application very soon. I said a few videos ago that I just wanted to discuss the TypeScript features related to classes so that we can then have more tools in our tool belt to continue the development of our React application. So please be a little bit patient. We will be back there soon. So in the previous video, we started exploring the access modifiers available in TypeScript. The first one we have covered is the private access modifier. Let's continue with the next ones. Now the next one is an access modifier that, to be honest, I don't use it that often, and you will probably won't either. It's the protected modifier. And what the protected modifier does is that it makes a field accessible within the class and within its subclasses. So let's think about the context of an electronic. We didn't talk about inheritance yet. We will do in a few videos, probably the next or 2 videos from now. But let's think about a microwave, right? We have a microwave here, and we said that the microwave was a new electronic. But as it turns out, it would make sense to create an on class to its microwave, right? So if we say class microwave, like so, we can then extend the behavior of my electronic and add a couple of new methods here, right? So the microwave is going to inherit all these functions and all the properties except the private one. It's going to inherit all of them from the electronic class. Now, if I try to say, let's say, is on, like so I already have the is on method. So let's try to create a new something like this, and I will say this dot is on not available, right? This is not available in my subclass. So once we have a class that is extending another class, we have the following. Our electronic is the superclass, like so, and our microwave is the subclass. Okay, we call these two, so these are the more precise, more formal names for the class that is extending another class and the class that is being extended. We'll talk about extension soon, but I just want to give you the example. Let's say I mark VATS as protected. Okay, so I want to have the VATS as a field that is not accessible from the external world. So if I were to come here and say microwave.vats, I cannot do it, right? Because the field is marked as protected. However, if I come here in my microwave and I will have a keyword that I will use here, which will get more clear once I use or once we discuss inheritance. Let's say we say getVats, like so, and I would return super.vats. Okay, now I think I did or at least it was not very clear here. Let's implement the isDevice on again, and I will say return super.is_on, like so. So just that we can compare a private field with a protected field. The super keyword, if I hover over it, you will see that it's pointing to the class electronic, right? So the super keyword refers to this little class here that is being extended. So what this code is doing is saying, okay, go to the superclass here and try to get the field is on from the superclass. And what TypeScript is telling you is like, you cannot do that because the underscore is on field is private and only accessible within class electronic. However, if we have a protected field, that's totally okay. I can go to my superclass, my electronic class, and get electronic class and get the value or the field VATS. That's what protected means. So I don't use it very often, maybe you will find it useful, but well, it's there, we have to discuss. I think it's very useful to have this knowledge, at least so that you know how it works, but it's not going to be our focus during implementation. The next modifier is the public modifier. Now, the public modifier is the default value for every field that does not have a modifier in front of it. So if I don't write anything, the field color is going to be considered public by default. Now I can erase this whole thing, and let's explore here. I will try to say microwave.color, and that's fine. I can simply access this console.log microwave.color, and if I execute, this is going to print gray on the screen, right? So public is the default field modifier or access modifier. It's the same if I write it like so. If you prefer to write it like so to make it clear, then by all means go ahead, but in my case I'll normally just omit the keyword because it's the default. Great. The next modifier that I want to discuss is the read-only modifier. And the read-only modifier means that the value cannot be modified. We can only assign this value within the constructor, but we cannot modify this value afterwards. Let's give an example. And instead of having a private is on, let's have a private read-only is on. And as you can see, as soon as I mark underscore is on as read-only, I start having a couple of errors because Typescript is telling me, oh, hold on, the underscore is on is a read-only property. You cannot be changing this thing around as you want. Okay, so the read-only is used whenever we want to store the value or to assign the value within the constructor, meaning when we create an instance of the class, but we don't want to allow for later modification. I'm not sure whether we will use this a lot, but well, we could consider, or we could come across a couple of use cases. We'll see. The final modifier that I want to discuss is the static modifier. And the static modifier is quite interesting, at least from the perspective of some design patterns, because static properties or static attributes and static methods, they don't belong to any instance. They belong to the class itself. So let's see how this works. What do I mean by that? Well, if I would like to, let's say, get electronic, let's think of a method that would belong to the electronic itself. I don't know, make sound, for example. I know that this would be a method here what we could say, make sound is fine. I mean, that's just an example. Suppose that this make sound method is something that is not specific. So it's a little bit hard to think of the concept of static, right? But once you start to use it over and over again, or in some cases, then the static method is going to be more clear how we should use it. But let's say that we have a static method called make sound. And here I will just say console.log making some sound that every electronic does. Okay, like so. Now what happens is that if I want to use the make sound method, I am not going to. Let's see what's going to happen if I try to use this from the microwave instance. Now my microwave, it cannot make a sound, because the make a sound is not a property of the instance of an electronic. The make sound is a property, or is a method of the class itself. So how do I access the make sound method? I have to, instead of writing the instance, I will write the class electronic.makeSound, like so. And this allows me to call a method without creating a new instance of the class. Now, as you can see, if I execute this, I have printed making some sound that every electronic does. So of course this logically does not make sense, but at least we have an example of how this could be used. Now you can think of a couple of examples here. One pattern that I use quite often and that we will use in our React application is that we will use this pattern of static to define a class that can only contain a single instance, or that can only have a single instance throughout the entire code. Now, which class is this going to be? It's going to be our data storage class. And why do I want to have a single instance throughout the code? It's because I want to make sure that whenever I'm working with data storage, I am accessing a specific piece of information, and I don't need to configure the data storage class whenever I want to work with it. So I need to configure it only once, and then I can access it from wherever I am in my code. So this would be something like this, for example. I'll just write this as a comment. When we go to our React application, we will work more with this. That would be data store.getInstance, for example. So the method getInstance is going to be a static method that is going to return some instance of the data store. Now, how do we use that? Well, we'll discuss this in a future video. This is called the Singleton Pattern. If you want to do a little bit of research on this, you will probably find quite a bit of material in strongly typed languages or object-oriented languages like Java and C#. So feel free to do so. We will discuss this a bit later down the road. Great. So I think we have discussed most or all, basically, the modifiers that are available for the attributes and for the methods of a class. And in the next video, we will come back and we will start discussing inheritance. Okay? So if you want to get a notification every time I upload a new video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and you will get a small reminder once the videos are out. There are many more topics that are coming. I'm thinking about a lot of series that are interesting for me, and I will start uploading them soon. And if there is any topic that is interesting for you, then make sure to comment on this video and write it down with a few details about what interests you the most. And if you also see a couple of topics in the comments that are interesting for you, give it a thumbs up, because I always consider the suggestions and their popularity when defining future series for my playlist, for my channel. Okay? So thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.